I never thought betrayal could sound quiet. No slammed doors, no shouting in the rain, just the sound of a notification pinging on a Sunday morning. But before that, there were years of trust. Daniel and I met in college, two broke computer science majors building small apps for beer money. He was the talker, the face. I was the guy who stayed up until 3 a.m., writing code in the dorm lounge, half dead on caffeine. We built small things that no one used, but we built them together. After graduation, when most people chase stable jobs, Daniel came to me with an idea. "Let's build something that actually solves a problem," he said, pacing my tiny apartment. No investors, no safety net, just us. It was reckless. It was everything I wanted. So we did. We rented a one-room office above a laundromat and called it Solarity. The name sounded too big for us back then, like a brand that belonged to someone else. But it was ours. We spent months coding, surviving on ramen and blind faith. Daniel handled clients and networking. I handled the product. It worked. When the first big client signed, we celebrated with cheap whiskey and paper cups. "We're actually doing this," Daniel said, grinning like a kid. He clinked his cup against mine. "To the dream." The dream lasted about a year before the money got complicated. That's when Marcus showed up. He wasn't like us. Older, polished, ex-consultant with the kind of calm voice that made investors feel safe. Daniel met him at some tech event and brought him to the office one afternoon. "This is Marcus," he said. "He's going to help us scale." Marcus shook my hand with the confidence of someone who already owned a piece of the room. "I've been following your work," he said. "Impressive stuff." We didn't have the money for a CFO, but Marcus said he'd work for equity until we grew. It sounded generous. Looking back, it was just leverage disguised as loyalty. The first months with Marcus were smooth. He organized our books, streamlined invoices, handled payroll. For the first time, we felt like a real company. But something shifted, subtle, almost invisible. Daniel and Marcus started having quick syncs without me. I'd walk into the office and find them whispering, stopping mid-sentence. When I asked about it, Daniel brushed it off. "Just admin stuff, man. You'd be bored." I wanted to believe him. Then came the documents. Marcus started sending me things to sign off quickly. NDAs, agreements, updates. Most looked standard, full of dense legal jargon. I signed them without reading too closely. That was my mistake. It's funny how betrayal always hides behind signatures you don't remember writing. By the time we hit our third client milestone, investors were reaching out. A venture firm in San Francisco wanted a meeting. We flew out, pitched, and walked away with verbal commitments. Daniel was ecstatic. Marcus smiled like he already knew the outcome. On the flight home, Daniel leaned back in his seat. "We're going to be rich, man," he said. I didn't realize how different his definition of "we" had become. A few weeks later, I noticed small irregularities. Minor, but off. Our shared drive had folders I couldn't access anymore. The financial dashboard that I built suddenly required admin authorization. When I asked Marcus, he laughed it off. "Oh, just cleaning up permissions. You know how messy devs can be." But it kept happening. Meetings without invites. Documents with my name on them that I hadn't written. And Daniel, once my partner in every decision, started avoiding eye contact when I brought up numbers. One night I stayed late at the office. Everyone had gone home, and I was pushing a new build to production when an email popped up. It was a thread between Marcus and Daniel. I shouldn't have seen it. It was forwarded to me by mistake. Subject: Bridge round update. Legal signed off. I scrolled. The thread was short. Too short for something that serious. Marcus: "We'll file it under interim funding. Use D's signature for efficiency. He won't mind once it's done." Daniel: "He won't even notice. He's busy coding." I sat there staring at the screen. My name wasn't mentioned, but the "he" was me, and I understood instantly they'd used my digital signature for something. I opened our legal folder. The newest document was a convertible bridge agreement, a funding round that didn't exist. The investors listed. shell companies, the authorized signatures, Daniel's and mine, except I never signed it. My stomach sank. I checked the audit log. The signature timestamp was 2:14 a.m., 3 nights ago. I was asleep. That's when I understood what they'd done. They'd created a fake bridge funding round to reallocate shares, my shares. They didn't sell their ownership. They sold mine. The whole thing was legal on paper, but fraudulent in practice. They diluted me from 33% to 6%. I was technically still a co-founder, but not an owner anymore. I stared at the screen for a long time, trying to process the math. Years of work reduced to a footnote in an internal memo. When Daniel walked in the next morning, coffee in hand, he smiled like nothing had happened. "Hey, you look like you didn't sleep," he said. "I didn't," I replied, eyes still on my monitor. "By the way, who approved the bridge round?" His smile froze. "What?" "The bridge funding, the one you and Marcus filed at 2:14 a.m. He set the coffee down slowly. "That's just paperwork, man. Internal restructuring. You're overreacting." "No," I said quietly. "I'm just finally reading." For a moment, no one spoke. The hum of the AC filled the silence. He looked at me the way you look at a problem that's already solved. Detached, faintly regretful, but done. And that's when I realized something I should have known a long time ago. Daniel didn't betray me out of greed. He betrayed me because he'd already decided I didn't matter. I shut my laptop, stood up, and walked out of the office without another word. I didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't demand. Because I'd seen the email that wasn't meant for me, and in that moment I understood. I wasn't a partner anymore. I was a liability. When someone steals from you, you expect chaos. You expect the heat, the shouting, the storm. But when it's people you built your life around, it doesn't feel like a storm. It feels like silence. For a few days, I did nothing. I went to the office, wrote code, acted like the man they thought they could control. I needed time to see how deep it went. Every conversation sounded different after that. Daniel's "we" sounded like me. Marcus's "trust me" sounded like "don't ask." On the third night, I stayed late again, not to work, to search. I went through the finance logs, board minutes, and internal approvals. Everything looked legitimate, signed, dated, notarized. My name was everywhere, except none of those documents came from me. Marcus had used an internal e-signature key, something he'd set up for convenience. It was the same tool I'd used for years to sign vendor invoices. Only now it had signed away my ownership. There were transfer logs showing that my 27% had been converted into investor equity under a subsidiary called Solarity Holdings II, a ghost company that Marcus himself had incorporated 3 months earlier. It was brilliant, really, a betrayal dressed up as accounting. The next morning I went to Daniel's office. His door was half shut, music low, coffee steaming on the desk. He looked up when I entered. "Hey man, everything okay?" "Not really," I said, closing the door. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, the body language of someone about to start damage control. "You want to tell me why there's a bridge round with my signature on it?" He hesitated just for a second. "I told you, that was a restructuring." "Don't lie," I interrupted. "You used my authorization key. That's fraud." He sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're taking this too personally." Marcus explained. "Marcus forged my signature." "It's not like that." "Then how is it?" He rubbed his temples. "You're emotional. Listen, you were holding too much equity for someone not involved in operations. It scared investors." I stared at him. "Operations, I built the entire platform." He didn't even flinch. "And I built the company around it. You don't see the big picture, man. You're great at what you do, but we needed flexibility. Investors don't want technical founders with veto power. So you decided to erase me." He spread his hands. "We didn't erase you. You still have 6%. You're part of the story." I almost laughed. 6%. That's what 3 years of 100-hour weeks was worth. That's what friendship was worth. Marcus told me it was temporary, Daniel added quickly. Once we close the Series A, we'll restore balance. You'll get buyback options. I looked at him and realized he actually believed his own lie. He thought this was business. He thought I'd swallow humiliation like a professional. You're incredible, I said quietly. You really convinced yourself you did the right thing. Daniel stood up, voice firmer now. I did what I had to do to keep this company alive. You don't understand how the game works. No, I said. I understand it perfectly. You just forgot who taught you to play. I walked out before he could reply. Marcus cornered me later that afternoon near the elevators. We can talk, right? I stared at him. You mean before or after you forged my name on corporate filings? He smiled like a man who thought charm could erase paper trails. Come on, don't make this ugly. We did what was necessary to grow. You'll benefit too. It's not personal. It's always personal when someone steals your life's work, I said. He lowered his voice. Look, Daniel's under pressure. He made calls you might not agree with. But fighting this will kill your reputation. Take the 6%. Walk away clean. Let's not drag this through court. And if I don't, he shrugged. Then you'll find out how long legal battles can last when your co-founders have the funding and you don't. That was the moment I stopped feeling hurt. I started feeling something colder. Not anger. Direction. I left the building, walked until I didn't recognize the streets. The city lights blurred into white noise. Every thought in my head narrowed into one point of clarity. They'd stolen something I couldn't rebuild with code. Trust. But what they didn't know was that I was already building something else. The next morning, Daniel called me. Let's be smart about this, he said. We'll give you a clean exit. You can keep your shares, but we'll reclassify your voting rights. Optics, nothing more. Send it over, I told him. He seemed relieved. Good. I'll have Marcus draft it. We'll settle this quietly. I spent the rest of the day reviewing the company's filings, copying every internal document I could access. Emails, Slack messages, transaction logs, all of it. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I just archived everything into a private drive. That night, Daniel sent me the new agreement. It was polished, simple, and designed to look harmless. I signed it. Then I waited for his confirmation message to hit my inbox, the one that said, all good on our end. When it came, I replied, perfect. I'll finalize my side tomorrow. I didn't. Instead, I printed everything. Every piece of evidence, every transaction, every fake investor account Marcus had set up. It was all there, just buried under layers of jargon and legal gloss. By Friday, the new agreement was executed. My shares were diluted again, now fully non-voting. I was officially out. Daniel called to thank me for understanding. Marcus texted, glad we could resolve it like adults. I didn't respond to either. On paper, they'd won. In reality, they'd just given me everything I needed to destroy them cleanly. When I cleared out my office that evening, Daniel gave me a hug, the kind you give a man you'll never see again. You'll land on your feet, man, he said. You always do. Yeah, I said, meeting his eyes. And so will you. He smiled, not realizing the double meaning, because as I walked out, I already knew what came next. They thought they'd buried me under paperwork. But that was just the beginning. Revenge doesn't start with anger, it starts with silence. The kind that makes people wonder what you're doing, or worse, if you're doing anything at all. For 2 weeks, I disappeared. No calls, no texts, no posts. Daniel probably thought I was licking my wounds somewhere, updating my resume, or crying into a drink. He didn't understand that I wasn't grieving, I was documenting. Everything I'd built, every line of code, every system architecture, all of it had timestamps, access records, and creator signatures. Mine. Everything Marcus had touched left a trail too. Transaction IDs, shell company registrations, bank movements. Fraud always leaves fingerprints, especially when the thief thinks he's clever. The first step was patience. The second was precision. I spent those 2 weeks in my apartment with the blinds drawn, surrounded by coffee cups and open laptops. When I wasn't coding, I was tracing their moves, cross-checking bank statements, email threads, and file metadata. It wasn't just the dilution. Marcus had been moving funds through layered vendor accounts, small consulting firms that didn't exist, invoices for strategic audits, payments to contractors who'd never worked with us. He'd stolen from the company too. Daniel either didn't know or didn't want to. The mistake they made was assuming I'd just want revenge. What I wanted was proof, the kind of proof that ruins lives, not just reputations. When I had enough, I reached out to an old contact. Angela, a former auditor who'd quit corporate work after exposing a CEO for insider trading. She owed me a favor. Years ago, I'd helped her rebuild her firm's data system after it got hacked. I sent her the files. No explanation, no story, just numbers, dates, transactions. She called me the next morning. "Jesus, where did you get this?" "From my own company," I said. "This is criminal. They could go down for this." "I know." There was a pause. "What do you want me to do?" "Just start the chain," I said. "Make sure the right people see it. But don't mention my name." She didn't ask why. She just said, "Consider it done." That was one side of the board in motion. The other was more personal. While Marcus was busy covering his tracks, I built something new, quietly on my own servers under a different name. NovaSync. It wasn't revenge disguised as a business. It was my way of reclaiming what they stole. I took the foundation of celerity, the infrastructure I had created line by line, and evolved it. Legally mine, ethically mine, better in every way. I didn't need investors this time. I needed clients, and I knew exactly which ones were getting fed up with Daniel's new leadership style. So I reached out, not as the angry ex-founder, not as a victim. I sent calm, professional emails. "Hey, I'm consulting now. If you're having issues with Celerity's new system, I can help." 3 replied within the first day, 5 by the end of the week. Meanwhile, the whispers began. Marcus had missed a filing deadline. An investor asked for an audit report. The accounting firm refused to sign off. It was small at first, a hairline crack. But cracks grow when you stop pretending everything's fine. Daniel tried calling me once. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Look, man, I don't know what's going on, but the auditors are asking questions. Did you say something?" I didn't. I didn't have to. Angela's firm had already sent their findings to 2 federal agencies, one for financial fraud, one for securities violation. The dominoes were falling exactly as they should. But revenge isn't complete until the guilty feel it, not just lose something, feel the weight of losing it. That moment came 3 weeks later. I was in a cafe when Marcus walked in, pale, sweating, suit rumpled. He didn't see me. He sat down at the counter, phone pressed to his ear, voice low but frantic. "Daniel, calm down," he said. "It's a misunderstanding. The IRS doesn't know anything. They're just reviewing." He paused. "No, I didn't forge anything. It was just an oversight." He stopped mid-sentence. The kind of stop that means someone on the other end just said something they shouldn't have. Marcus stood up, grabbed his briefcase and left, fast. He didn't even finish his coffee. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Daniel. "We need to talk, please." I stared at it for a long time, then typed, "There's nothing to talk about." He replied instantly, "This isn't you. You're not this kind of person." I smiled. He was right. The man he knew would have shouted, threatened, begged for fairness. This man didn't need fairness. He had leverage. The next week, Celerity's investors pulled out. The company's valuation dropped by half overnight. The board suspended operations pending financial clarification. Daniel went on a live stream interview trying to sound calm. I watched him fake confidence for 20 minutes, while reporters asked about irregularities and internal disputes. His voice cracked only once, but once was enough. Marcus disappeared 2 days later. His LinkedIn went dark. His email auto-replied, "On leave indefinitely." No one ever saw him again. Daniel tried again. "Please, if you had something to do with this, stop. We can fix it." I typed back, "You already fixed it. You fixed me." He didn't reply. The following week, Angela called again. "It's official," she said. "They're being investigated. Your name's nowhere in the file." "Good," I said. "You got what you wanted?" "Almost. Because revenge doesn't end when they fall. It ends when you can walk past the wreckage and not feel the need to stop." That Friday, I launched NovaSync publicly. No investors, no hype, no co-founders. Just clean code, honest contracts, and quiet clients who trusted results over promises. By Monday, we'd signed our first major account, one of Celerity's biggest former partners. When Daniel saw the announcement online, he must have known that I was still here, that I wasn't gone. They thought they'd buried me. They were wrong. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. Peace doesn't come when they lose. It comes when you stop caring that they did. By the time NovaSync hit its first year, the noise had faded. No late-night calls, no lawyers, no whispers in the tech blogs, just quiet, the kind that follows after a storm has already decided who's still standing. The investigation into Celerity went public 3 months after their collapse. "Accounting irregularities," the article said, "misrepresentation of investor capital." It didn't mention my name. It didn't have to. Anyone close enough to know the truth already knew. Marcus was charged with 2 counts of wire fraud. He'd opened accounts under false vendors, moved over $400,000 before the audits caught him. His face appeared once on a local news site. Eyes hollow, hair uncombed, the kind of man who looked like he'd been awake for weeks. After that, he vanished from the industry entirely. Daniel wasn't charged. He was too careful, too charming. But he lost everything anyway. His investors sued him. His reputation was gone. The last I heard, he was consulting for mid-tier startups, the kind that pay in promises and hope. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I didn't even tell anyone. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't need an audience. One evening, almost a year after everything ended, I was sitting on my apartment balcony, laptop open, finalizing a client proposal. A message came through from an unknown number. I knew the tone before I even opened it. "It's Daniel. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I lost control of something I thought I could manage. I never meant to hurt you." I stared at the screen for a while. I believed him. Or maybe I believed that he believed himself. That's how men like him sleep at night, by rewriting history until it fits. I typed slowly. "You didn't lose control, Daniel. You gave it away." A few minutes later, he replied, "You think you won?" I thought about it. About the nights in the office, the smell of burnt coffee and server heat, the trust we built and the silence that replaced it. About the way betrayal doesn't shout. It just erases the sound of everything that came before. "No," I wrote. "I didn't win. I survived. You didn't." He never replied again. A few months later, I ran into him by accident. A business expo downtown, rows of booths and recycled lanyards. He looked thinner, older. There was something in his eyes. Not guilt, exactly. More like exhaustion. He noticed me before I could turn away. "Hey," he said softly. "Can we talk?" I nodded once. We stepped to the side, near a vending machine humming under fluorescent light. He shoved his hands in his pockets. "You know, it's weird. I still wake up sometimes thinking about those nights in the office. The good ones, before all the bullshit." "Yeah," I said. "Me too." He gave a weak smile. "I thought we were unstoppable back then." "We were," I said, "until you decided you didn't need me." Daniel looked down. "Marcus did what you allowed him to do." I said quietly, "You could have stopped him." "You didn't." He didn't argue, just nodded, staring at the floor like he was waiting for a sentence that wouldn't come. Finally, he looked up. You got what you wanted, right? I shook my head. No, Daniel. What I wanted was honesty. What I got was freedom. They're not the same thing, but I'll take it. He tried to smile again, but it collapsed halfway. I hope it was worth it. It was, I said, because for the first time in years, I don't owe anyone an explanation. He nodded once, quietly, and walked away. He didn't look back. Neither did I. These days, my life is simple. Mornings start early. Coffee, code, quiet. Days are steady. Clients who pay on time, no drama, no meetings that should have been emails. Nights end with a clean inbox and a lighter conscience. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever start another company with partners again. I tell them no. Not because I can't trust, but because I finally learned what my trust is worth. It's not for sale. Angela still sends me updates sometimes. A new audit case here. A corporate scandal there. I always thank her. She knows I never wanted blood, just balance. And sometimes when I walk past the old office building where Celerity used to be, I stop for a second. The windows are empty now. The sign's been taken down. Just a blank wall where our name used to be. I don't feel pride. I don't feel regret. Just a quiet acknowledgement that everything ends one way or another. They taught me that. They taught me that people don't betray you when they stop caring. They betray you when they believe you'll never fight back. And maybe that's why the final blow mattered so much. Because it wasn't rage, it wasn't spite, it was precision. They took what they thought was mine. I just took what they thought they'd keep.